They called me too sensitive until I brought the recorder, and the whole family finally understood me to the point of fear. The bruise on my wrist faded, but the bruise in my memory grew clearer each day until the night I turned on the lights and the entire house heard his own voice. I was done apologizing. That night he raised his hand. I raised the evidence. When they laughed at my bruises, they forgot I was the only one who knew how to tell the story down to every second. My name is Avery Knox, and I learned long ago that some families perfect the art of selective blindness. The kitchen humidity clung to everything that evening, the windows, the chipped Formica countertops, even the back of my neck as I stood by the sink. Mom's knife hit the cutting board in steady intervals, dicing onions for her famous pot roast, the one that made everyone forget. The dish soap's lemon scent couldn't mask the underlying smell of mildew that had settled into the baseboards years ago, around the time Roy Mercer moved in and decided I was the problem that needed fixing. "Set the table, would you?" Mom didn't look up. Lynn Knox, she'd kept Dad's name even after marrying Roy, had perfected the art of not seeing things directly. I pulled 4 mismatched plates from the cabinet. The good china stayed locked away for people who mattered. Sloane breezed through in her cheerleading uniform, phone glued to her face, live streaming her pre-dinner makeup routine to whoever cared. My half-sister had inherited Roy's sharp jawline and our mother's ability to float above the mess. "Careful with your clumsy hands." Roy's voice preceded him into the kitchen. He filled the doorway, still in his warehouse supervisor polo, the fabric straining across his beer gut. "Don't need you breaking more dishes." The bruise on my wrist had faded to yellow-green, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Roy knew. His eyes found it immediately, and his mouth curved into that thin smile, sharp as the knife Mom wielded. "How'd you get that mark anyway?" Sloane lowered her phone, suddenly interested. "You're always walking into things. Or maybe someone else is the clumsy one." Roy stepped closer, his work boots heavy on the linoleum. The floorboards underneath groaned. This house was never meant to hold so much weight. He reached for my wrist, his thumb pressing into the exact spot where the bruise bloomed deepest. Not hard enough to make me cry out. Never hard enough for that. Just enough to remind me of 3 nights ago, when I'd suggested maybe Sloane could help with dishes for once. "Just playing," he said, squeezing slightly before letting go. "Right, Avery. We're always just playing." Mom's knife never stopped moving. Chop, chop, chop. I thought of all the times before. The shove down the stairs junior year. She tripped. The handful of hair yanked during an argument about curfew, sisters' fight. The bloody nose at Thanksgiving ran into the door. "Who'd believe you anyway?" Roy had asked me once, when I was 17 and threatening to tell someone. Anyone. Star student Sloane's sister. The weird one who joined the guard just to get away. They'd think you were making it up for attention. The recording pen in my pocket felt heavier than it should. I'd bought it yesterday from a spy shop 2 towns over. Paid cash. The woman behind the counter had given me a knowing look, but said nothing. Some stories don't need to be spoken to be understood. "Dinner's ready," Mom announced, finally looking up. Her eyes skimmed over my wrist, over Roy's proximity, over the way I held myself rigid as stone. "Let's eat while it's hot." We sat in our assigned seats had been assigned since Roy decided the family needed structure. Him at the head, Mom to his right, Sloane to his left, and me at the far end, where the wobbling table leg made everything unstable. "Avery's been doing well at that medical place," Mom offered into the silence. "Hawthorne Medical Logistics. They promoted her to senior coordinator. Counting boxes of vaccines." Roy speared a potato. "Real impressive." Sloane giggled. Roy reached over and squeezed her shoulder, gentle, affectionate. The father she deserved. The father I disrupted by existing. I watched the digital numbers on the microwave clock blur. 7:43 p.m. In 2 hours. They'd all pretend this dinner never happened quite like this. The bruise would become my fault. The words would soften in the retelling, but the pen in my pocket was recording everything, every dismissive laugh, every squeeze that lasted too long, every moment they chose not to see. I looked at them, my mother methodically cutting her meat, Roy pontificating about work incompetence, Sloane taking selfies with her plate, and felt something shift inside me. Not rage, something colder, more patient. If I told them, they would laugh. If I let them hear themselves, they would finally understand. And maybe, just maybe, they would learn what fear actually felt like. The cold chain never lies. That's what they taught us in the Guard when I worked medical logistics. Every vaccine, every blood bag, every temperature reading creates an unbreakable record. At Hawthorne Medical Logistics, I spent my days verifying these chains, matching timestamps to signatures, proving what was real. My apartment sat 40 minutes from Mom's house, in a Rust Belt city that smelled like diesel and disappointment. I'd chosen it specifically for the distance close enough for obligatory dinners, far enough that Roy wouldn't just drop by. The building was a converted warehouse with thin walls and industrial pipes that clanged at night. But it was mine. Every lock, every security camera in the hallway, every entry log mine to control. Maya Ellison lived 3 floors up. We'd served together stateside, running drills at Fort Jackson, never seeing combat but learning how bodies broke under pressure anyway. She worked as a freelance forensic technician now, consulting for insurance companies and law firms, the kind of person who understood evidence. "Chain of custody," she said over beer at her kitchen table, examining the recording pen I'd bought. "That's your biggest issue. Anyone can claim audio is doctored these days." "So what do I do?" Maya pulled out her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Multiple sources, timestamps that sync, metadata that can't be faked. You build a network of proof so tight that even the best lawyer can't poke holes in it." She showed me apps that uploaded directly to cloud storage, creating instant backups with server-side timestamps, showed me how to photograph injuries using medical standards ruler for scale, consistent lighting, multiple angles, taught me about admissible evidence and contemporaneous records. "Document everything in real time," she said. "Send yourself emails describing incidents immediately after they happen. The timestamp becomes evidence. Your medical records from the ER visits request them all. Every single one." I thought about the folder hidden in my closet. 7 emergency room visits over 10 years, sports injuries, they'd said, household accidents. Nobody had asked the right questions. Or maybe they had, and I'd been too good at lying. Why didn't I do this before? The question escaped before I could stop it. Maya's expression softened. "Because before, you were surviving. Now you're fighting back. There's a difference." She pulled up a website, Riverbend Coalition Against Domestic Violence. "My cousin volunteers here. They have lawyers who work pro bono. When you're ready, and only when you're ready, they can help with restraining orders." "I'm not a victim," I said automatically. "No," Maya agreed. "You're building a case, like any good soldier would." That night, I sat in my apartment with its water-stained ceiling and documented everything. The bruise on my wrist photographed with my phone's timestamp and a medical ruler Maya had given me. The incident at dinner typed up in an email to myself, sent at 9:17 p.m. Every word Roy had said, every laugh from Sloane, every moment Mom looked away. I pulled my old journals from a box under the bed, started scanning pages, uploading them to 3 different cloud services. The entry from junior year when Roy first shoved me. February 15th, 11:30 p.m. He said I was undermining his authority. My back hit the banister. Mom was at book club. The hospital records request forms took an hour to fill out. 7 different hospitals we'd moved twice to follow Roy's job opportunities, and I'd learned to rotate emergency rooms so no one would notice patterns. Each form required a notarization. Each would generate an official record of requesting my own medical history. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "You seemed upset at dinner. Remember, family works through things together." I screenshot the message. Added it to the folder. Another buzz. This time from Sloane's Instagram, she'd posted a family dinner selfie. There I was in the background, Roy's hand on my wrist, my face turned away. The caption, "Family time, jar blessed, jar love my crew." I saved that too. Evidence has a way of hiding in plain sight. Maya had given me a small camera, the kind that looked like a phone charger. I plugged it into the outlet facing my apartment door. If anyone came by unexpectedly, I'd know. Time, date, facial recognition all uploading automatically to a server Maya managed for her forensic work. The tools of proof surrounded me now. Not weapons in any traditional sense, but something more powerful, the ability to make truth undeniable. Roy had spent years making me question my own memories, making others doubt my words. But timestamps don't lie, medical records don't forget, and synchronized recordings from multiple devices create a reality that no amount of family loyalty can erase. I thought about Sun Tzu, something we'd studied in basic training. Every battle is won before it is fought. Roy didn't know it yet, but the battle had already begun, and I was done being the only casualty. Grandfather had been dead 3 years, but Mom insisted on marking the anniversary like he might walk through the door, the house filled with relatives who remembered him as a stern Baptist minister, not the man who'd taught me to throw a punch when I was 12. Sometimes, "Avery," he'd said, "the meek don't inherit nothing but more pain." The afternoon heat made everyone sluggish, grateful for Mom's sweet tea and the ancient window units that barely moved the air. Cousins clustered in the living room, kids ran through the halls, and aunts commandeered the kitchen with their casseroles and unsolicited advice. "Avery's looking thin," Aunt Marlene announced, the one who'd told me at 16 that I'd never find a husband with such a sour disposition. "And pale. City living doesn't suit you." "She's always been delicate," Cousin Brenda added, the same woman who'd watched Roy grab my arm at Christmas 2 years ago and said nothing. "Takes after her daddy's side." They talked about me like I wasn't standing right there, holding a tray of deviled eggs that trembled slightly in my grip. The recording pen clicked on in my pocket, a new habit now, documenting everything. Roy held court on the back deck, beer in hand, surrounded by the men who appreciated his stories about warehouse management and his opinions on welfare cheats. He'd had 4 beers by 3 p.m., 5 by 4. I knew his rhythm 6 was when the mean came out. 7 was when he got physical. "There's our college girl," Uncle Dennis called out as I passed. "Though I heard you dropped out to play soldier." "Served 6 years," I said evenly. "Medical logistics. Honorable discharge." "Still," Roy interjected, his voice carrying that false warmth he performed for audiences. "Not like she saw real action. Stateside the whole time. Basically summer camp with uniforms." The men chuckled. Roy's hand landed on my shoulder as I tried to pass, fingers digging into the exact spot where he'd left marks before. "Avery here was just telling me she might move back home," he announced, which was a lie. "Realized the big city isn't all it's cracked up to be." I asked who's on duty at the sheriff's office. I corrected, loud enough for the recording. "Deputy Garrett, right. He married Susan Claiborne from high school." Roy's fingers tightened. "Why would you need to know that?" "Just curious. Susan and I were friends." The sun beat down on the deck, halogen bright, making everyone squint. Sweat beaded on Roy's forehead, ran down his temples. His polo shirt showed dark patches under the arms. The other men drifted away, sensing tension they didn't want to acknowledge. Sloane appeared with her phone, as always. "Dad, Mom wants you inside for the prayer." "Dad." She'd started calling him that when she was 7, and it still made something twist in my chest. Roy released my shoulder, but not before shoving slightly, just enough to make me step back, not enough for anyone to call it violence. "Watch yourself," he muttered, beer breath hot against my ear. "Your attitude's ruining the memorial." Inside, we gathered in a circle, hands linked, heads bowed. Aunt Marlene led the prayer, asking God to welcome Grandfather's soul and keep the family strong. Roy's hand was damp in mine, squeezing too hard. On my other side, Mom's fingers felt brittle as bird bones. And Lord, Marlene continued, help us remember that family means forgiveness, that we must turn the other cheek and love even when it's difficult. My eyes opened, found the smoke detector on the ceiling with its hidden camera, the one I'd installed last visit, connected to my phone. The red light blinked steadily, recording Roy's thumb pressing into my palm until the bones ground together. After prayer, in the chaos of food and chatter, Roy cornered me by the bathroom. His body blocked the narrow hallway, that familiar trap I'd been caught in dozens of times. You think you're smart, he said, voice low, asking about cops, making implications. I asked about an old friend. His hand shot out, caught my upper arm. Through the thin fabric of my shirt, his fingers found old pressure points with practiced ease. I know what you're doing. Nobody's going to believe the bitter daughter who couldn't handle her mom remarrying. Let go. I kept my voice steady, clear. Good for the recording. He leaned closer. Make me. The bathroom door opened. Sloane emerged, already filming herself. Her phone caught us Roy's grip on my arm, my rigid posture, the 6 inches of space that looked like nothing and felt like drowning. God, get a room, she laughed, not seeing or choosing not to see. Mom says it's time for cake. Roy released me with a final squeeze. A promise. Later, his eyes said. When the witnesses were gone and the house was quiet and Mom was pretending to sleep, I rubbed my arm, knowing the bruises would bloom by morning. Purple-black fingerprints that would photograph beautifully under proper lighting, evidence accumulating like compound interest. Tonight, I said quietly to the camera in the smoke detector, to the pen in my pocket, to Grandfather's ghost if he was listening. He'll come to my room tonight. And he did. The evidence lived in 3 places now: my apartment, Maya's encrypted drive, and a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Building a chain of custody had become my second job, more demanding than coordinating vaccine shipments at Hawthorne. Maya helped me organize everything into what she called litigation packets. Each incident got its own folder date, time, description, supporting evidence. The bruise on my arm from the memorial had been photographed every 12 hours as it evolved. The color changes documented like a medical study: purple to black to green to yellow. A timeline written in blood vessels. This is from your ER visit in 2019, Maya said, sliding the records across her kitchen table. Fractured ribs. You told them you fell off a ladder. I did fall off a ladder. Roy shook it while I was cleaning gutters. She highlighted a passage. The attending physician noted the injury pattern was inconsistent with described mechanism. He suspected something but didn't push. Every medical record told the same story. Suspicions documented but never pursued. Injuries that didn't quite match my explanations. A pattern visible only when you laid all the papers out like evidence in a murder case, except I was still alive to testify. The audio files were cleaner now. Maya had software that isolated voices, removed background noise, enhanced clarity. Roy's words from the memorial came through sharp, "Make me." The sound of his grip on my arm was audible fabric rustling, my sharp intake of breath. This is admissible, Maya confirmed. North Carolina is a one-party consent state. You can record your own conversations. Sloane's TikTok videos had become unexpected evidence. I'd created a fake account to follow her, downloading everything she posted. 3 separate videos showed Roy's aggression in the background, shoving furniture when angry, slamming doors, once throwing a plate that shattered just out of frame while Sloane danced obliviously in the foreground. She doesn't see it, I said, watching a video where Roy's raised voice made the camera shake slightly. She sees what she needs to see, Maya corrected. But cameras don't have that luxury. The Riverbend Coalition Against Domestic Violence had assigned me a counselor named Patricia, a former prosecutor who'd left criminal law after her own sister was killed by an ex-husband. Your documentation is exceptional, Patricia said, reviewing my files. Most survivors don't have half this much proof. I'm not a survivor. Nothing's happened yet. Patricia's look was knowing. Avery, you've been surviving for years. Now we're going to help you escape. She walked me through the process. Restraining orders required specific evidence of threat or harm. My medical records established pattern. The audio recordings showed escalation. The photographs documented injury. But the strongest evidence would be current threat, she said carefully. If he were to explicitly threaten you, especially with witnesses or recording. You're saying I need to let him hurt me again. I'm saying abusers escalate when they sense loss of control. Be ready. I requested my school records next. 3 suspensions for behavioral issues, all within months of Roy moving in. My grades dropping from A's to C's junior year. The guidance counselor's notes about trouble at home that never triggered mandatory reporting. The doorbell camera footage from Mom's house had captured 17 incidents in the past 2 months. Roy pushing me against the door frame, his hand on my throat for just a second before releasing with a laugh. The night he stood outside my childhood bedroom door for 43 minutes, breathing audibly, testing the handle every few minutes until he finally walked away. I transcribed everything, times, dates, quotes. My fingers cramped from typing, but each word was another bar in the cage I was building around him. You need witnesses, Maya said. People who'll testify. Nobody will go against him. He's coached Sloane's softball team for 6 years. He's a deacon at First Baptist now. He brings Mom flowers every Friday. Then make him testify against himself. The plan formed slowly. Patricia couldn't officially advise me to bait him, but she could mention that recorded confessions were powerful evidence. Maya couldn't help me set a trap, but she could ensure my equipment was working perfectly. And I couldn't deliberately provoke Roy, but I could stop pretending everything was fine. I organized the evidence chronologically. 10 years of hospital visits, hundreds of hours of audio. Photographs that showed the evolution of violence bruises getting darker, injuries getting worse. The escalation Patricia had warned about. The final folder contained legal documents, power of attorney forms, will updates, contact information for women's shelters in 3 states. A new bank account Roy didn't know about with 6 months of expenses saved. When Maya asked, sealing another backup drive. Soon, he's getting worse. Mom's pretending harder. Sloane's about to leave for college. He'll lose his favorite witness. And his favorite contrast. The good daughter versus the bad one only works when we're both there. I thought about the dinner I'd promised to attend next week. Mom had called it a family meeting to discuss Sloane's college plans. But I knew Roy's patterns. He'd drink to celebrate his daughter's success. He'd compare us, praise her, diminish me. And when Mom went to bed and Sloane retreated to her room, he'd find me. This time, I'd be ready. This time, every word would be recorded, every action captured, every threat preserved. The chain of evidence was complete. Now I just needed the final link, Roy condemning himself with his own voice, his own violence, his own truth that no amount of family loyalty could deny. I want to fix things, I told Mom over the phone, each word calculated. Come to dinner tomorrow, just family. We need to talk about Sloane's college without all the drama. The pause stretched long enough that I checked my phone to ensure we were still connected. Roy's been stressed, Mom finally said. Maybe if you apologized. 6 p.m., I'll bring dessert. I arrived at 5:45, early enough to prepare, late enough that Roy would already be drinking. The house smelled like pot roast again, Mom's answer to everything. I placed the store-bought pie on the counter and surveyed my childhood kitchen like a battlefield, the phone propped behind the flour canister, angled to capture the dinner table. Voice recorder tucked in the artificial plant by the window, my personal phone in my pocket, live streaming to cloud storage. The mirror above the buffet would reflect anyone standing by the door, a detail I'd noted years ago when Roy would block my exits. You came? Sloane said, breezing in with fresh highlights and college acceptance letters. Mom thought you'd bail. Wouldn't miss celebrating your success. Roy entered without acknowledgement, heading straight for the refrigerator. Beer number 3, by my count. His movements were still controlled, but I knew the timeline by 7 he'd be loose. By 8, he'd be mean. We sat in our assigned seats. Mom served dinner with practiced efficiency, filling silence with observations about the weather, the neighbor's new fence, anything but what simmered beneath. "Stanford's offering a partial scholarship," Sloan announced, waving the letter. "Plus UCLA wants me for their honors program." "That's wonderful," I said genuinely. Whatever else divided us, Sloan had worked for this. "See," Roy pointed his fork at me, "your sister knows how to achieve things, not like some people who wash out and blame everyone else." I set down my water glass carefully. "I served 6 years. Honorable discharge. That's not washing out. Playing dress-up stateside isn't serving." His voice carried that dangerous undertone. "Real soldiers see combat." Mom's hand fluttered to her throat. "Roy, please." "What I'm just saying, Avery here likes to exaggerate. Always has. Remember when she claimed I pushed her down the stairs?" He laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Clumsy girl tripped over her own feet and tried to blame me." "That's not what happened." I kept my voice steady, clear, perfect for recording. "No, you gonna make up more stories." He leaned back, chair creaking. "Like when you told that teacher I hit you had CPS sniffing around for nothing. Mrs. Henderson saw the bruises." "You bruise if someone breathes on you." Beer number 4 appeared in his hand. "Weak genetics from your daddy's side." Sloan filmed her food, oblivious or complicit. Mom cut her meat into smaller and smaller pieces, creating busy work. "I want us to be a family," I said, following the script I'd rehearsed. "But that means acknowledging what's happened." "What's happened?" Roy stood, his bulk throwing shadows across the table. "Is you've spent 10 years trying to destroy this family, making accusations, spreading lies. Then you have nothing to worry about if I report them." The silence crystallized. Mom's knife clattered against her plate. Sloan finally looked up from her phone. Roy moved faster than a man his size should. His hand caught my shoulder, fingers digging into the socket until I gasped. The phone behind the flour canister captured everything: his grip, my pain, Mom's paralysis. "You threatening me?" His breath was hot, beer sour. "I'm stating facts. If nothing happened, there's nothing to report." His other hand rose, and I saw Mom flinch, her first crack in the facade. "Roy, the neighbors. Fuck the neighbors." But he lowered his hand, some self-preservation instinct still functioning. Instead, he leaned close, lips near my ear, but voice loud enough for the recorders. "You say one word to anyone, and I'll make every beating you imagined look like a lullaby. So you admit to beating me." The slap came fast, hard, snapping my head sideways. The mirror caught it perfectly. Roy's full wind-up, the impact. Mom half rising from her chair with a strangled, "Roy, enough!" I touched my cheek, felt the heat already rising. "Thank you. I have what I need." "You have nothing." But uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "I have everything." I stood slowly, keeping my movements calm. Every threat, every admission, every moment Mom knew and did nothing. "You're lying." I pulled out my phone, showed them the live stream timer, 47 minutes, 16 seconds. "It's all uploaded. Cloud storage, multiple servers, time-stamped and witnessed." Sloan dropped her phone. It clattered on the hardwood, the sound enormous in the silence. "You recorded us." Mom's voice was small, betrayed. "I recorded the truth. The difference is, this time, you can't pretend it didn't happen." Roy lunged, but I was already moving, years of training overriding fear. I sidestepped, let his momentum carry him into the wall. The house shook with impact. "I'm leaving," I announced, grabbing my purse with steady hands. "Don't contact me. Don't come to my apartment. Next time, I won't just record. I'll press charges." "Avery." Mom reached out, tears finally coming. "Please, you chose him. Every day for 10 years, you chose him. Now live with that choice. I walked out, leaving them frozen in their tableau of dysfunction. My cheek throbbed with each heartbeat, but I smiled. The trap had worked perfectly, and Roy was right about one thing. I did have weak genetics from my daddy's side, but I had something stronger from grandfather, the knowledge that sometimes the meek don't inherit the earth. Sometimes they have to take it. The family meeting came 3 days later. Mom called twice before I answered, her voice brittle with forced cheer. Your aunts want to discuss Sloane's college plans. Just a small gathering. Marlene and Dottie, please come. I knew it wasn't about college. It was damage control. Roy's attempt to get ahead of the story, make me look unstable before I could tell anyone what really happened. I arrived with my Bluetooth speaker in my purse, fully charged. The recording pen clicked on as I walked through the door. Every conversation would be preserved, but this time, they'd hear themselves. Aunt Marlene sat rigid on the good sofa, the plastic covers crinkling beneath her. Aunt Dottie clutched her purse like a shield. Mom served coffee in the china cups, the ones that meant serious business. Roy positioned himself by the fireplace. Master of the domain, Sloane curled in the corner chair, uncharacteristically quiet. We're concerned, Marlene began, the appointed spokesperson. Your mother says you've been making accusations. I've been documenting facts. Roy's been nothing but generous to you, Dottie added. Paid for your car repairs last year, helped you move. He dented my car himself, and he helped me move because he wanted me gone. Roy's laugh was performance art. See, everything's twisted in her mind. I try to help. She sees conspiracy. You said you'd make every beating I imagined look like a lullaby. I stated clearly. That's not helping. That's threatening. You misunderstood, Mom interjected quickly. Everyone was emotional. I have the recording. The room stilled. Marlene's coffee cup rattled against its saucer. You recorded a private family conversation. Her tone dripped judgment. That's disturbing. More disturbing than him hitting me. Nobody hit anyone, Roy said smoothly. Avery's always been dramatic. Remember when she claimed I threw her down the stairs? You did? She tripped. Lynn saw it. All eyes turned to Mom. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It was dark. It was 2 in the afternoon, I corrected. February 15th, 2017. You were watching TV in the living room. You heard the impact. I don't. You came running. You saw him standing at the top of the stairs. You saw me at the bottom with a separated shoulder. Accidents happen, Marlene said firmly. Dwelling on the past helps no one. I pulled out the speaker, set it on the coffee table. Then, let's discuss the present. The first audio clip filled the room. Roy at the memorial. Your attitude's ruining everything. The squeeze of flesh was audible, my controlled breathing, his muttered threats. Marlene shifted uncomfortably. Dottie studied her hands. The second clip dinner 3 nights ago. Roy's voice boomed from the small speaker, making accusations, spreading lies. Then the slap, crisp and unmistakable, followed by Mom's, Roy, enough. That's... Dottie started, then stopped. Edited, Roy said quickly. She's got some app, makes things sound worse. The third clip began one they didn't know existed. Sloane's TikTok from last month, where Roy's voice raged in the background. I'll fucking kill her if she comes back here with that attitude. Sloane went white. That wasn't about Avery. That was about... someone at work. Play it again, I said. The clip repeated. This time, Mom's voice was audible, responding, Don't say that about Avery. The room filled with the sound of their own complicity. Every dismissal, every excuse, every moment they chose comfort over truth. This is what you've done for 10 years, I said quietly. Watched him hurt me and called it discipline. Saw bruises and called them clumsiness. Heard threats and called them jokes. You're tearing this family apart, Marlene said, but her conviction wavered. No, I'm done being the only one torn. I pulled out the manila envelope, thick with documentation. Medical records, 7 ER visits, photos of injuries, dated journal entries, audio recordings spanning 3 years, video evidence from multiple sources. What do you want? Roy's facade finally cracked. Money. I want you to know that everyone will hear this. Your boss at the warehouse, the deacons at First Baptist, Sloane's friends' parents. Unless what? You admit it. Here. Now. In front of everyone. Say what you did. I didn't do anything these people haven't seen in their own homes, he snarled. Discipline. Structure. What you needed. So you admit to disciplining me? Someone had to. Dottie gasped softly. Marlene set down her cup with shaking hands. Say it clearly. I pushed. Tell them about the stairs, the bruises, the nights you came to my room. Roy stepped forward. Mom grabbed his arm. Don't. What she wants the truth. He shook her off. Fine. I tried to make her respect this family. If that took a firm hand, so be it. Firm hand, I repeated. Is that what you call fracturing my ribs? The silence stretched until Sloane broke it, her voice small. You hurt her. She hurt herself with her attitude. You hit her. Sloane stood, phone clutched like a weapon. I have videos, background of my posts, you hitting walls, throwing things, and her. God, she's always in the corner, trying to stay small. Baby, you don't understand? I understand enough. She looked at me, really looked, maybe for the first time. I see it now. I packed up my speaker, my evidence, my decade of proof. The coalition has copies of everything. My lawyer will contact you about the restraining order. Lawyer? Mom's voice broke. Avery, please. They laughed at my bruises, I said, looking at each of them. Now you'll hear yourselves on repeat, explaining them to a judge. He came at 11:43 p.m. I'd moved out of my apartment 2 days earlier, leaving only what I wanted him to find: motion sensors, cameras, and a light that would activate when the door opened. Maya sat in her car outside, phone ready to call 911. We'd rehearsed this. She'd wait exactly 3 minutes after he entered, then call reporting a break-in in progress. The old apartment still smelled like paint and cleaning solution. I'd left a forwarding address on the counter fake, but believable. Some mail scattered around to suggest I'd been back recently. The neighbors thought I still lived there. I'd made sure they saw me coming and going all week. Roy had found the address through Mom's phone, just as I'd expected. She'd texted me asking for it, to send birthday cards, and I'd obliged, knowing she left her phone unlocked and Roy checked it regularly. The security footage from the hallway camera caught everything. Roy approaching with a crowbar, testing the door handle first, then jimmying the lock with practiced ease. Not his first break-in. Apparently, the motion sensor triggered the lights and the cameras simultaneously. His face in the sudden brightness raw, undisguised fury mixed with animal satisfaction. He thought he'd found me alone, vulnerable, without witnesses. Avery. His voice boomed through the empty space. I know you're here, you lying bitch. The cameras captured him stalking through the apartment, checking the bedroom, bathroom, closet. His movements grew more erratic with each empty room. Think you can ruin my life? He slammed his fist into the wall, leaving a hole in the drywall. Come out and face me like you should have years ago. He found the forwarding address, crumpled it, threw it aside. Then he saw the photo I'd left on the counter, the one from Sloane's 5th birthday party, before everything went dark. He picked it up, studied it, then smashed it against the counter edge. Should have finished this when you were 15, he muttered, glass crunching under his boots. Would have saved everyone the trouble. The admission hung in the air, captured by 3 different recording devices. He moved to the bedroom, kicking the door open. Empty mattress, bare walls, nothing but cameras he couldn't see in his rage. When I find you, he paused, breathing heavy. I'll do what I should have done that night. Make it look like you did it yourself. Troubled girl, all those psych issues from the military. Another gift for the prosecution. The sound of sirens began in the distance. Roy froze, calculating. He moved toward the window, peered out, saw the patrol cars converging. "That bitch," he said, understanding flooding his features. "She set me up!" He ran for the door, but it was too late. The hallway filled with uniforms. Maya's call had been perfect suspected armed break-in, possible domestic violence situation, requests for immediate response. I stepped out from the stairwell where I'd been waiting, staying visible but distant, protected by distance and witnesses. Deputy Garrett was first on scene, just as I'd hoped. Susan Claiborne's husband, who'd always been suspicious of Roy's temper. "He's inside," I said calmly, breaking and entering. "I have video." Roy emerged in cuffs, saw me, lunged despite the restraints. "You fucking—" "Sir, you need to calm down," Garrett said. But Roy kept screaming. "She's lying. This is my stepdaughter family dispute. Family doesn't break into empty apartments," Garrett observed. "And that doorframe's definitely damaged." I handed Garrett the USB drive. "Security footage from 3 angles, audio included." "He admits to planning to hurt me." "This is entrapment." "No," I said quietly. "This is consequences." Maya appeared with her phone, showing Deputy Garrett her recording of Roy entering. The timestamp, the clear criminal intent. Other tenants opened their doors, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Rodriguez from 3B, who'd always noticed my bruises but never asked. Mr. Garrett from 3D, who'd heard Roy screaming at me through the walls years ago. "I saw him break in," Mrs. Rodriguez announced. "Had something in his hand, looked like a weapon. Heard him threatening her." Mr. Garrett added, "Something about finishing what he started." More witnesses than Roy had ever allowed before. More truth than he could deny. As they led him away, he turned back one more time. "Your mother will never forgive you." "She never forgave me anyway," I replied. "At least now she'll know why." The patrol car pulled away, Roy's face a mask of rage in the back window. Garrett stayed behind to take my statement, thorough and professional. "The USB has everything," I said, "including admissions about past violence. We'll need you to come to the station tomorrow. File formal charges." "I'll be there at 8 Maya stood beside me as the parking lot emptied. "You okay?" "He said again that night," I murmured. "On camera. He said he'd hit me again that night." "That's confession to past assault. That's proof Mom can't deny." My phone buzzed. "Sloan, they arrested Roy. Mom's crying." "What did you do?" I typed back, "What I should have done years ago. What you would have done if it had been you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "I'm sorry," I laughed. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Tomorrow there would be statements, lawyers, protective orders. Tonight, Roy would sleep in custody, processing the reality that his stepdaughter had orchestrated his downfall with the precision of someone trained in logistics. Someone who understood that every chain has a weakest link. His was believing I'd remain a victim forever. The interview room at Riverbend Sheriff's Office smelled like burnt coffee and industrial disinfectant. Through the one-way glass, I watched Roy slumped in a metal chair, his court-appointed lawyer whispering urgently. The confident warehouse supervisor was gone, replaced by a man who finally understood he'd been outmaneuvered. Detective Harrison, a woman with 30 years of domestic violence cases behind her eyes, set up the laptop. "Your evidence is comprehensive, Miss Knox, but I want you to see something." The screen flickered to life. Security footage from the apartment, crystal clear. Roy breaking in, stalking through rooms, his voice captured in high definition. "Should have finished this when you were 15. Would have saved everyone the trouble." "That's premeditation," Harrison noted. "And this next part." Roy's image filled the screen, his face contorted with rage. "I'll do what I should have done that night. Make it look like you did it yourself." "That night," I repeated. He said, "That night." Specific. Singular. "The night he fractured my ribs." Harrison pulled up another file. "Your medical records from January 20th, 2019. 3 fractured ribs, facial contusions. You told the ER you fell downstairs. He pushed me, then kicked me when I was down. Mom was at book club. Sloan was at a sleepover. And now we have him on tape essentially confessing to it. Behind the glass, Roy's lawyer showed him something on a tablet. Even from here, I could see it was the footage. Roy's face went white, then red, then a defeated gray. Mom sat in the waiting area, tissues clutched in her hands. She'd aged a decade overnight. Sloan sat beside her, scrolling through her phone but not really seeing it. 5 minutes, Harrison said. Then we play everything for them. The conference room filled with the sound of Roy's voice. Confession after confession. Mom flinched at each threat. Sloan stopped pretending to look at her phone. When you hit me, again, that night. Roy's recorded voice echoed off the institutional walls. Mom's sob broke the silence. I couldn't. You did, I said quietly. And you could. You just chose not to. Harrison pulled up the final piece Sloan's TikTok videos. Enhanced and isolated. Roy's violence in the background of her perfect life. Frame after frame of evidence she'd accidentally collected. Your daughter has 63 videos spanning 2 years, Harrison told Mom. In 41 of them, we can see or hear evidence of domestic violence occurring in the background. Sloan stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. I didn't know I was recording. The camera doesn't lie, Harrison said. It doesn't make excuses. It just shows what happened. Roy's lawyer entered, looking exhausted. He wants to make a deal. No deals, I said immediately. Miss Knox, please consider. I considered for 10 years. Now he faces what he did. The lawyer sighed. Then he wants to make a statement. On the record. They brought Roy in, cuffed to the table. He wouldn't look at me, focusing on a water stain on the wall. He started, stopped, started again. I maintain that discipline was necessary. Roy, his lawyer warned, but maybe. Sometimes, I went too far. Too far, I repeated. Is that what you call attempted murder? His head snapped up. I never should have finished this when you were 15. I quoted. Make it look like you did it yourself. Your words. Recorded. Time-stamped. The fight drained from him like air from a punctured tire. Mom reached for his hand across the table, but the chain on his cuffs didn't reach far enough. Fitting, I thought. There'd always been a gap between them and reality. Assault, breaking and entering, criminal threats, attempted burglary. Harrison listed the charges. You're looking at significant time, Mr. Mercer. This is your fault, he said to me, but even his accusation sounded hollow. No, I stood, gathering my coat. This is accountability. I left them there. Mom crying. Sloan silent. Roy finally understanding that his stepdaughter had spent years building a case he couldn't beat. The girl who joined the guard to escape him had learned about supply chains and evidence chains, about documentation and verification, about how truth could be weaponized against those who thought they were untouchable. Outside, Maya waited by her car. How do you feel? Free, I said, and meant it. Patricia from the coalition had warned me that justice rarely felt like victory, but watching Roy's face when he heard his own voice confessing to crimes he'd denied for a decade that felt like something better than victory. It felt like truth, finally too loud to ignore. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number that I recognized as Aunt Marlene's. We should have listened. I'm sorry. I deleted it. Some apologies come too late to matter. The sun was setting over Riverbend, painting the sky the color of old Bruises healing. Tomorrow there would be court dates and testimonies, protective orders, and probably years of therapy. But tonight, for the first time in 10 years, I could go to sleep without wondering when he'd come for me, because Roy Mercer was exactly where he belonged, locked in a room with his own voice, playing on repeat, telling the truth he'd made us all deny. When they laughed at my bruises, I said to the fading light, I learned to make the bruises speak louder than their laughter. And finally, they had no choice but to listen. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know it wasn't easy to hear, but sometimes the hardest truths need to be told. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to know and connect with others who understand that survival sometimes means playing the long game. Please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters, and you never know who might need to hear that they're not alone in their fight for justice.